There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when the heavens issue a command so counterintuitive, so opposed to natural human instinct, that it separates those who merely believe from those who truly trust. That command is silence. Not the comfortable quiet of meditation retreats or the peaceful hush of Sunday mornings, but the agonizing, teeth-gritting restraint of keeping your mouth shut when every fiber of your being screams to explain, defend, justify, and reveal. This is not suppression. This is warfare. And right now, in this very moment as you listen to these words, if you feel that unbearable pressure building in your chest, that desperate need to tell someone, anyone, about what you're experiencing, then this message has found you at precisely the appointed hour. The divine command to cease speaking arrives wrapped in urgency because timing has become critical. You stand at a threshold where the next words out of your mouth could either accelerate or obliterate years of divine preparation. God doesn't issue this command to every believer, only to those carrying assignments so volatile, so explosive in their potential impact, that premature exposure would invite catastrophic interference. You've been marked, chosen, set apart for something that terrifies the kingdom of darkness, and your enemy knows that if he can just get you talking, sharing your strategies, broadcasting your breakthroughs, announcing your next moves, he can deploy counterattacks with surgical precision. Silence isn't about hiding. It's about not handing your adversary the intelligence report he desperately needs to destroy you before you fully activate. Consider what happens in the unseen realm when words leave your mouth. Ancient wisdom keepers understood what modern quantum physics now confirms. Observation collapses probability. In the spiritual dimension, your words don't just describe reality, they create it, shape it, lock it into specific forms. When you speak about divine processes still under construction, you essentially force unfinished spiritual architecture into premature manifestation. It's like cutting open a chrysalis to check on the butterfly. The creature inside wasn't ready. It needed the full darkness, the complete dissolution, the thorough reorganization that only uninterrupted silence provides. Your words, spoken too soon, abort the metamorphosis. What emerges is weak, incomplete, incapable of flight. And because you opened your mouth before heaven finished the work, you now bear responsibility for sustaining something that should have gestated longer. The exhaustion you feel isn't always demonic attack. Sometimes it's the energetic cost of maintaining premature manifestations that your mouth birthed before their appointed time. The biological reality of excessive speech reveals why this command carries life or death weight. Every time you explain yourself, defend your choices, or justify your journey to someone who hasn't been authorized to understand it, your nervous system floods with cortisol. This stress hormone doesn't just create temporary discomfort, it systematically dismantles your body's ability to function at higher levels. Cortisol suppresses your prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for wisdom, discernment, and strategic thinking. It triggers inflammation throughout your system, creating that chronic achiness, that perpetual fatigue, that sense of being drained by invisible forces. Your vagus nerve, the critical pathway connecting brain to body, becomes dysregulated. Heart rate variability plummets, indicating that your nervous system has lost its resilience, its ability to shift between stress and rest. You become trapped in perpetual fight or flight, which is exactly where your enemy wants you, because warriors exhausted from constant explanation cannot execute the assignments heaven is preparing them for. The ancient contemplatives knew this intuitively. Egyptian mystery schools required 7-year silence initiations because they understood that speech hemorrhages life force. Pythagorean students observed 5-year verbal fasts while studying sacred mathematics, recognizing that wisdom enters through ears kept open and mouths kept shut. Buddhist monastics still practice noble silence during intensive retreats, not as religious ritual, but as practical technology for consciousness elevation. These weren't arbitrary traditions, but codified survival protocols passed through generations of those who discovered that premature revelation attracts premature destruction. What I'm about to share with you now connects directly to principles I've explored in the second volume of The 3 Keys to a Prosperous Life, which examines how spiritual warfare operates through information control. You'll find the complete trilogy in the pinned comment below for deeper study after this teaching. But here's the critical mechanism you must understand. Adversarial entities cannot read your thoughts, but they can detect vocal frequencies. This is why occult practices across every dark tradition demand absolute silence until working's complete. Demons aren't omniscient. They're limited beings operating with restricted intelligence. When you verbalize your strategies, your fears, your timelines, you broadcast on frequencies they can access. They gather intelligence from your words, then deploy targeted interference designed specifically to counter what you just revealed. This is why you feel increased resistance immediately after sharing certain things. It's not coincidence. It's cause and effect. Your mouth just gave the enemy his marching orders. Think about Joseph, whose prophetic dreams revealed a destiny so magnificent that sharing them prematurely cost him 13 years. The moment he opened his mouth to his brothers, he set forces in motion that wouldn't stabilize until Egypt's throne. Those weren't wasted years. They were recalibration years, the cosmic consequence of speaking before the fullness of time. Or consider David, who understood something about strategic silence that kept him alive during Saul's murderous pursuit. When David had opportunities to defend himself, justify his anointing, announce that God had already chosen him as the next king, he stayed silent. He trusted that divine vindication operates on a superior timeline that human explanation only interrupts. And when his moment finally arrived, there was no debate, no controversy, no extended explanation required. The silence had built such momentum that his elevation was undeniable, instantaneous, irreversible. The metaphysical mechanics behind this command operate according to spiritual physics most believers never encounter because they never advance to levels where these laws become relevant. At foundational faith stages, mistakes cause minor delays. God works around immaturity, adjusting timelines to accommodate learning curves. But at advanced levels, when chosen ones carry assignments affecting nations, generations, or kingdom paradigms, margin for error approaches zero. A single premature word can desynchronize variables that heaven spent years arranging. Imagine a master watchmaker assembling an intricate timepiece with hundreds of interdependent components. Every gear must align precisely. One piece inserted prematurely throws the entire mechanism off balance, requiring disassembly and reconstruction. This is what happens in the spiritual realm when chosen ones speak too soon. God doesn't punish them for talking. He simply must rebuild sequences, their words disrupted, and reconstruction always takes longer than original construction. Your nervous system is currently undergoing a recalibration process so profound that ancient traditions would have recognized it immediately as sacred initiation. The exhaustion you're experiencing isn't weakness, it's neurological reorganization. Decades of chronic stress, from constantly explaining yourself, defending your choices, justifying your journey to people who lack the spiritual frequency to comprehend your assignment, have left your system depleted. Your adrenal glands are exhausted from perpetual cortisol production. Your gut microbiome, intimately connected to mental health through the gut-brain axis, has been disrupted by inflammation caused by persistent stress. Your sleep architecture has fractured because your brain cannot enter the deep restorative phases when your nervous system remains locked in sympathetic activation. Science confirms what mystics always knew. The body cannot heal while the mouth keeps running. Parasympathetic engagement, the rest and digest mode where cellular repair occurs, requires stillness, including verbal stillness. When you finally obey the silence command, watch what happens physically. Within weeks, sleep quality improves, mental fog lifts, physical pain that seemed permanent begins subsiding. This happens because your biology finally has permission to heal, no longer forced to allocate resources toward defending narratives that don't require your defense. The psychological dimension of this command reveals an addiction most chosen ones don't recognize until forced into silence. Human brains contain reward circuits activated by social validation. When you explain your journey, dopamine releases provide temporary relief from uncertainty's discomfort. This creates neurological dependency. Uncertainty triggers anxiety. Speech provides momentary validation through sympathetic responses or supportive comments, but external reality remains unchanged, causing deeper anxiety that demands more explanation. The cycle continues, each iteration draining more spiritual energy while generating zero actual progress. You become addicted to explanation, to being understood, to having your experience validated by people whose opinions carry no weight in heaven's courtrooms. God's silence command functions as forced detox, breaking chemical dependency on external validation. It redirects your security source from human recognition to divine connection. A maturity prerequisite for assignments at higher altitudes, where public opinion becomes spiritual liability rather than emotional comfort. The hiding season accompanying silence serves developmental functions that visibility would sabotage. During public phases, external feedback shapes self-perception. You become who others say you are, unconsciously conforming to expectations, performing versions of yourself crafted for audience approval. Hiding removes external mirrors, forcing confrontation with authentic self beneath performance layers. In this space, terrifying in its raw exposure, false identities dissolve. The person you thought you were, constructed from others' projections and expectations, begins crumbling. This feels like death because ego structures collapse. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when your gifts aren't being celebrated? Who are you when your prophetic insights aren't getting likes, shares, or comments validating that you're special? The chrysalis darkness strips away every external definition until only essence remains. What emerges on the other side is resurrection identity. Unshakable, clear, impervious to public opinion because it was forged in private obscurity where no audience existed to perform for. Scientific research on sensory deprivation validates this ancient wisdom through unexpected channels. Studies show that reducing external stimuli allows brains to reorganize neural pathways with dramatic efficiency. Participants in flotation tank experiments report sudden insights, pattern recognition breakthroughs, and intuitive downloads. Chosen ones in hiding seasons experience identical phenomena, not despite silence, but because of it. Your brain, freed from constant social processing demands, reading facial expressions, interpreting tone, formulating responses, managing impressions, redirects computational power toward problem-solving, creativity, strategic planning. What appears as stagnation externally manifests as revolutionary internal reorganization. Think of it as defragmenting a hard drive. The computer seems inactive, but beneath the surface, data is being rearranged for optimal performance. When chosen ones emerge from silent seasons, they operate from upgraded mental architecture built during months or years when nothing seemed to be happening. The divine downloads, the strategic clarity, the supernatural wisdom that suddenly flows, these aren't new gifts. They're reorganized capacities that silence cultivated while the world thought you were doing nothing. But here's where discernment becomes critical, because not all silence is holy. Fear-based silence, masquerading as obedience, will destroy you. You must learn the distinction. Holy silence originates from peaceful conviction, even when uncomfortable, a deep knowing, bone deep and unshakable, that speaking would violate divine timing. It feels like holding a valuable secret, treasuring something precious that isn't ready for public consumption. There's anticipation, even excitement, because you know this silence is temporary and strategic. Fear-based silence, conversely, creates chest tightness, obsessive mental rehearsals of worst-case scenarios, anxiety about repercussions. You're not quiet because God said wait. You're terrified of consequences, intimidated by potential backlash, paralyzed by what-ifs. This distinction matters desperately because God never authors fear. 2 Timothy explicitly states that the Spirit you received does not make you timid, but gives power, love, and sound mind. If your silence stems from intimidation rather than wisdom, it contradicts God's nature operating within you. You must examine motivations with ruthless honesty. Am I quiet because heaven commanded it, or because I'm terrified? The former builds spiritual authority that will eventually speak with undeniable force. The latter erodes your soul, creating toxic shame that manifests as physical illness. The practical implementation of this command requires daily disciplines beyond merely biting your tongue. First, redirect every speech impulse toward heaven. When the urge to vent arises, and it will, repeatedly, intensely, pour those words toward God instead of humans. Transform potential power leakage into spiritual deposit. Your ceiling becomes your counselor. Your prayer closet becomes your therapy session. This accomplishes dual purposes. Emotional release occurs without creating spiritual exposure, and you build intimacy with the one who authorized this assignment in the first place. Second, practice the 3-second pause before responding to anything emotionally charged. In that pause, ask one question: did God authorize this response? Most often, the answer is no. That pause becomes your protection, a gap between stimulus and reaction where wisdom can intervene before impulse creates consequences. Third, journal with aggressive intensity. Write everything: the frustrations, the injustices, the misunderstandings, the desire to be seen and known. Paper absorbs what humans cannot hold, and unlike conversations, journaling creates no soul ties, no energetic cords draining your power. Fourth, establish communication boundaries without announcement. Don't tell people you're going silent. That itself violates the protocol. Simply answer less, explain less, appear less. People will adjust or depart, and both outcomes serve the divine plan, because those meant to remain will respect your space, while those who can't handle your silence were never assigned to your next season anyway. The protective function of silence becomes clearest when understanding soul ties, spiritual realities most modern believers ignore, despite biblical precedent. 1 Corinthians warns that joining with another person makes you one flesh. But this principle extends beyond sexual union into every substantial interaction. Deep conversations create energetic cords between participants. Repeated interactions strengthen these bonds, creating persistent connections that continue exchanging energy even after physical separation. When you over-communicate with spiritually misaligned individuals, people operating from lower consciousness, carrying unhealed trauma, or harboring hidden agendas, you establish ties that function like energetic siphons. They drain power, transmit confusion, create access points for interference that bypasses your normal spiritual defenses. Every time you explain yourself to someone who isn't equipped to understand, you hand them an energetic leash. They don't mean to use it maliciously, most don't even know it exists, but their doubts, their fears, their limitations now have direct access to your energy field. Silence severs these cords. It withdraws your power from circulation, reclaiming energy previously leaking through open channels you didn't realize you'd created. God's silence command isn't just communication management, it's spiritual surgery, cutting attachments that would compromise assignments requiring every ounce of your focused energy. The timing sensitivity of this command cannot be overstated. And if you're feeling increasing urgency as you listen to these words, that urgency is confirmation. Many chosen ones currently stand at thresholds where next-level assignments require precision, unavailable to loose-lipped operators. Divine strategies at advanced levels involve synchronized timing across multiple variables: people, resources, revelation, governmental shifts, economic changes, technological developments, cultural movements. These variables must align within specific windows. A single premature disclosure can desynchronize the entire sequence. You tell one person your strategy, they tell two people their interpretation of your strategy. Those people form opinions and pray according to their understanding. And suddenly, heaven is managing interference created by well-meaning believers whose premature intercession disrupted the timeline. This sounds harsh, but it's mechanics, not judgment. At foundational levels, mistakes cause minor setbacks. At advanced levels, errors cascade catastrophically. God's deadly serious warning reflects stakes that aren't theoretical. Chosen ones at this level carry assignments where failure affects multitudes. Silence functions as advanced level discipline, qualifying you for responsibilities where margin for error is measured in millimeters and seconds. What's happening in the unseen realm, while you maintain obedient silence, would astound you if veils lifted for even a moment. Heaven isn't idle. While your mouth stays shut, God rearranges hearts you've never met, dismantles opposition you don't even know exists, corrects false narratives circulating in spheres you cannot access, prepares sudden reversals that will vindicate you so thoroughly that no explanation will ever be required. This activity accelerates specifically because you're not interfering. Human involvement, however well-intentioned, introduces variables heaven must then manage. Your words create expectations in others that God never authorized. Your explanations generate sympathies that obligate you emotionally to people who aren't assigned to your destiny. Your premature revelations attract attention from entities, both human and demonic, that weren't supposed to know about your assignment until its manifestation was irreversible. When you stay silent, God operates unobstructed, moving pieces across the cosmic chessboard with surgical precision. Your role reduces to elegant simplicity. Be quiet, stay faithful, remain available. Complexity decreases while effectiveness multiplies exponentially. This counterintuitive principle that doing less achieves more separates mature kingdom operators from perpetual strugglers who exhaust themselves through incessant activity that produces minimal eternal impact. The restoration occurring beneath silence's surface includes nervous system recalibration that medical science is only beginning to understand through polyvagal theory. Your vagus nerve, the longest cranial nerve connecting brain to nearly every major organ, functions as a bidirectional highway transmitting information about safety or danger. Chronic stress from constant explanation has locked your system in dorsal vagal shutdown, a state of collapse and disconnection that manifests as depression, brain fog, and physical numbness. When you cease defending yourself, something miraculous happens. Your nervous system begins testing whether it's finally safe to emerge from protective shutdown. Heart rate variability improves, indicating increased capacity to shift between activation and rest. You start experiencing spontaneous sighs, your body's way of releasing trapped stress. Sleep architecture repairs itself, allowing entry into deep restorative stages previously inaccessible. Digestion normalizes because gut function depends on parasympathetic activation that chronic stress inhibits. These aren't peripheral benefits, they're essential preparation. Next-level assignments demand physical stamina, mental clarity, and emotional resilience unavailable to operators running on fumes. Silence provides biological recuperation disguised as spiritual discipline, preparing your physical instrument for demands that would break you in your current depleted state. The vindication principle embedded in divine silence deserves extended examination because it reveals how God's justice operates at levels most believers never access. When you defend yourself, you relieve God of responsibility to do so. You've taken the case into your own hands, announced that divine vindication isn't sufficient, declared through your actions that you must intervene to ensure justice. When you stay silent despite slander, misunderstanding, false accusations, and public disgrace, you transfer vindication duty entirely to heaven. God then moves with creative authority unavailable when humans interfere. Divine vindication arrives with undeniable clarity. Circumstances shift in ways no one can attribute to your manipulation. Truth emerges organically through testimonies you didn't orchestrate. Accusers discredit themselves through their own actions without your involvement. This vindication carries permanent weight that self-defense never achieves. Human explanation convinces temporarily and often incompletely, leaving doubt lingering in corners. Divine demonstration settles matters eternally, rewriting narratives so thoroughly that even former enemies become advocates. Think about Joseph again. When his brothers stood before him in Egypt, terrified and awaiting deserved vengeance, he didn't have to defend himself or recount their betrayal. The vindication was so complete, so obvious, that explanation became unnecessary. His silence during 13 years of injustice purchased vindication so thorough that his accusers prostrated themselves without protest. Chosen ones who master silence gain access to this superior vindication protocol where God doesn't just clear your name, He elevates you so dramatically that injustice becomes evident to everyone who witnessed your suffering. The faith development accelerated by silence cannot be replicated through any other discipline, and this is why God specifically uses this method for chosen ones, destined for pioneering assignments. Faith grows strongest when exercised without evidence, commentary, or reassurance. Silence forces radical trust, believing without seeing, moving without confirmation, waiting without updates. You cannot call a prayer partner for encouragement. You cannot post your struggle on social media for supportive comments. You cannot explain your situation to a mentor for guidance. You're alone with God in a place where only trust remains. This produces rare faith, the substance of things hoped for variety that Hebrews describes. Faith that literally manifests reality because it operates undiluted by external opinions. Most believers operate on intellectual agreement, not functional faith. They believe God exists, they believe the Bible is true, but their faith has never been isolated and intensified through extended silence where no backup plan exists. Silence burns away intellectual scaffolding, leaving only trust's essence. It's faith refined in fire, stripped of every crutch, forced to stand alone or not at all. Chosen ones who survive this crucible emerge capable of moving mountains through mere conviction because they've developed faith's purest form. Faith that doesn't require external validation because it draws strength solely from divine connection. The preparation for elevation that silence provides explains God's uncompromising insistence on this command. Visibility brings pressures that systematically destroy unprepared individuals, scrutiny that magnifies every flaw, criticism from people who contribute nothing but feel entitled to judge everything, expectations that multiply faster than you can possibly meet them, spiritual attack that intensifies proportionate to your influence. Chosen ones promoted prematurely collapse spectacularly under these forces. Their fall becomes public. Their name becomes cautionary tale. Their assignment gets reassigned to someone better prepared. But notice the pattern throughout scripture and history. Those who endured extended hiding before elevation didn't just survive visibility, they thrived in it, seemingly immune to pressures that crushed others. What's the difference? Silence pre-tested them. Before platform, before influence, before anyone was watching, they demonstrated capacity to handle misunderstanding without explanation, maintain peace without validation, and trust God when nothing made sense. These aren't arbitrary trials, but specific capacity-building exercises. Can you be misunderstood and stay faithful? Can you be forgotten and remain obedient? Can you be invisible and keep serving? Silence answers these questions definitively. When it strengthens you sufficiently, visibility cannot destabilize you because you've already weathered worse in obscurity. You emerge already tested, already proven, already unshakable. Elevation then becomes sustainable platform rather than destructive pressure, because the foundation was poured in secret. The authority accumulated through obedient silence manifests differently than earthly authority, and recognizing this distinction changes everything. Worldly authority demands recognition, titles, positions, public validation, formal acknowledgement. It requires constant reinforcement because it's externally derived and therefore externally dependent. Spiritual authority simply is. A presence that shifts atmospheres without declaration, a weight that commands respect without demanding it, a force that accomplishes through being rather than doing. When chosen ones emerge from silence seasons, they carry this settled authority. They don't need to prove themselves, convince skeptics, or perform for validation. Their presence alone communicates weight, substance, reality. This happens because silence removed desperation, insecurity, and need for external approval, the very traits that undermine authority. What remains is pure, grounded certainty that requires no amplification. You know who you are, what you carry, and what God said, and that knowing is sufficient regardless of who believes it or validates it. Heaven recognizes and responds to this authority instantly, accelerating manifestations that previously seemed impossible because the internal alignment finally matches the external assignment. The warfare dimension of this silence command operates on levels most believers never perceive because they've never accessed battlefields where these strategies become necessary. Your enemy isn't concerned with average believers living average lives. He allocates minimal resources to people whose impact remains localized and limited, but chosen ones carrying assignments that will shift territories, influence generations, or establish kingdom paradigms represent strategic threats requiring concentrated opposition. When you were young in faith, demons left you relatively alone because you posed minimal danger. Now, as your anointing matures and your assignment approaches activation, the level of interference has intensified dramatic